creating healthy gardens and homes. We're going to recap some of the environmentally friendly aspects of the Garden Home Retreat right after this. Over the past 20 years as a garden designer, I've enjoyed helping homeowners create private sanctuaries full of beauty and wonder. I find each garden to be a fresh opportunity to explore ways to create uniquely personal spaces. These are just a few of the gardens I've helped to transform into garden homes. I'm Alan Smith. Welcome to the Garden Home, a show about design and blurring the lines between inside and out. Now, in today's show, we're going to focus on green. Now, what I mean by that is not this kind of green. I'm talking about green building. We're going to talk about some of the green concepts, the ecologically friendly approaches we've taken out here. Now, this house has come a long way in the past year. In fact, I can't believe it. And I can't wait to show you some of the progress. We'll look back at the home's construction from the ground up and profile some of the innovative elements being brought in to make this house as earth-friendly as possible. We'll also take a look at the progress of the organic garden. It's amazing that it ever looked this barren. So why don't we start with the house? We'll check on the progress. Come on. These guys are certainly making some progress here with the house. You know, the exterior is almost finished. The brick is up. Well, the roof is yet to go on, but as soon as we get the fireplace coming up through the center, they'll be able to cut a hole in the roof and get the roofing on, and that's where that radiant heat system is going to go in. The columns are on the way for the front porch, but they're doing lots of painting on the trim work, so it's really feeling complete outside. Here on the inside, electrical and plumbing is going in. We've got all the windows installed, and in fact, they've even started putting the trim work around the windows themselves. And if you take a look at the depth of these walls, the reason for this is, well, the idea is to make it feel like it's a solid brick house. I don't mean just a veneer. I'm talking about the way they did them in the old days, where the house wall was about 12 to 16 inches thick. So we've doubled up the studding here, and we'll fill this with that soybean-based insulation, just like we used out in the outbuildings last week. I have to say it was really exciting to see all of this happen, and it was a real step in the right direction from the green standpoint. Abby France, an expert in soy-based insulation, tells us more about this environmentally friendly approach. Abby, I cannot believe what a windy day it is. I'm glad we're working inside today.
Yes, I hope we don't blow away.
Well, this mobile unit is amazing. You guys can go just about anywhere with this.
Yes, we can. We pull it up as close as we can to the house, and then these hoses will go directly into the home.
The whole process is fascinating to me. Tell me about the actual soybean. That's what's so exciting to me because of obviously the green component.
Right, and it should be. Soy-based polyol is what we use, and it's agrol. It's 96% pure soy oil inside the agrol.
It seems like if everybody thinks of everything that we do and we use and ask the question, is there a green alternative, then you begin to turn things around.
And anymore, Alan, there's green alternatives for almost everything in your home.
I just feel like I need to be a good steward for the generation that I'm living in.
That's right.
And hopefully be able to pass on something to the next generation.
That's right, and I practice that every day with me and my family at home.
So how tight does it actually make a structure? I mean, this is the little studio that we have here at the Garden Home Retreat, and I can already tell a difference, and you're only half done here.
That's right. You want to get it as tight as possible. It keeps things cold just as it should be and hot as it should be.
If you use insulation that's this efficient, you really need to make sure that your ventilation system works, because you're not going to have the benefits of the wind blowing through the house.
That's right. You want to make sure that you're working with an HVAC contractor, a GC, a general contractor that actually is very familiar with working with spray foam insulation, because it's all a team. It just works as a system.
Okay, so I've got another question. If I'm a mouse, am I going to be attracted to this because it's made from soybeans? And as a mouse, I love soybeans.
Right. I love that question. Reason being is because rodents are going to burrow through anything that they can burrow through, but they're not going to smell their way to the foam, and nor does it offer any nutritional value.
Okay, so a mouse isn't going to come up out of the orchard here and run down and tell all its friends and show up.
No, we won't.
Okay, great. Now down here in the basement level, I want to point out some energy efficient or energy saving devices. You see, the foundation of the house is really built on an ICF, an insulated concrete form. And these polystyrene blocks are put in place with plastic in between, and all the reinforcing metal goes through it, and then the concrete is poured. Well, what you end up with is this layer of insulation that gives you an R value of 20. Now, if you take this with some of the other energy-saving features that we're integrating into the house, such as the insulation, such as the efficient doors and windows, you can save up to 30 to 50% of your energy costs, which is, I mean, that's huge. Now, when the basement was dug and the foundation went in, this polystyrene made it look like one giant ice cooler. I had Gary Brown come as an expert on ICFs to help explain the benefits of using this technology. You see, in my part of the country, this is really new technology, but something that I think everyone should know about. Now, Gary visited the Garden Home Retreat when the ICFs were about the only signs of progress. Here's what he had to say. Well, Gary, what do you think?
Well, Alan, it's exciting. I'm really pleased to be here and to see the progress that you've made on your garden home. It's very exciting.
Coming along, isn't it?
It really is. It's very exciting.
You know, I have to say, when I was looking into building green, I was surprised to learn that these ICFs that are made of polystyrene are actually considered a green building material.
Well, you know what? That's an excellent observation, Alan. A lot of people wonder how do you get a green product out of expanded polystyrene? In the manufacturing process, basically all we use is steam. The water is completely recycled. There's no harmful gas emission. To manufacture this versus an alternative product like steel or wood, it's considerably less fossil fuel used to build. Basically what it is that you've got 2.5 inches of expanded polystyrene on either side, which is your insulation. You've got insulation on the outside of the home, on the inside of the home. It's held together with a polypropylene web. This web is actually 75% recycled material.
And this is where the guys laid the reinforcing steel in there.
Exactly.
So the wall is not only insulated with the polystyrene, it has incredible support built into it with this grid or web, as you say, of metal, and then the concrete itself.
Exactly. I mean, structurally, this is one of the strongest walls you can get.
Gary, I'm pleased you gave us a thumbs up.
Well, Alan, I'm really excited to be here. It's really exciting to see the progress, and I'm looking forward to coming back and seeing more.
Now, the ICFs, or insulated concrete forms, aren't the only green technology that we're putting to work in the basement. You see, under the floor, there's a radiant heat system that ties up into the roof. Just thought I'd give you a little construction update from a very precarious place out here at the Garden Home Retreat. I'm on the south-facing roof of the house. And what's going on here is something that I'm very excited about. It's all about energy conservation. But not only that, it's about harvesting energy from the sun. You see, this is our radiant heat system that's going in. South-facing roof. What they laid down first was a metal-clad, aluminum-clad fabric. Then these purlins went on top here and here. You can see them spaced about 8 inches apart. And between them is a product called PEX tubing, which is a combination of plastic and aluminum, which allows water and a mixture of glycol to flow through it. Now what happens is rays of the sun hit the metal roof. That heat is transferred into the glycol and water that's in this tubing, and then it's transferred into the house. It preheats the hot water and warms the floors. Not too bad, huh? Now, after they finish this, they'll come back and put that traditional standing seam roof on it like we've seen on the other buildings out here, and it will be painted that tinner's red. Okay, so the radiant heat system that's in the floor ties to the roof. That's where we see the solar heating system at work, just like the system they're employing at Flag Hill Winery in New Hampshire. Frank, the winery is so beautiful. Tell me, when did you decide to move from a dairy farm to creating all these beautiful vineyards?
We looked at all the traditional crops and said, you know, there's just nothing working. And I thought that new term that was buzzing back then was agrotourism.
Yeah.
And we thought that the concept of grapes and the concept of growing in this region, that would be something that was reasonable to do. And we made the decision in 1990 to go ahead and plant the vineyard, and actually this section right here is our first acre.
You know, what fascinates me about what you're doing here, Frank, at Flag Hill is that you've integrated some green initiatives into the work here.
Yeah, it seemed like the logical thing to do in New Hampshire, and particularly since we have a still that produces 180 degree water, about 1,000 gallons of it, and not using that water and recovering the heat is kind of foolish. So we employed a system called the Dawn solar system, which helps us take the byproduct heat from the still, and one, it heats the building through a piping system in the floor.
Which is very important in the winter here.
Around here it gets downright cold, and that's our primary heat source for the floor. Plus we have another system in the roof structure that actually takes the sunlight and heats the water, and we use it for domestic hot water for our restaurant.
So the radiant heat coming through the metal roof transfers that thermal energy into the water, and you use that to preheat the water.
Preheat the water, and it's an excellent source of domestic hot water, and several other components like that. But end result is we're recovering all of that very expensive fuel. Because think about it, when we started our business here just a year ago or 2 years ago, oil was what, $1.25, and now it's $3.25.
Right.
So if you don't figure out
going up
very much, we want to recover that cost, and this is just several initiatives we're taking to, one, stay green because we spent the money, we might as well use it. Plus, it's just common sense. Good agricultural business in today's market.
Well, it's a real inspiration.
Thank you very much, Alan.
It's inspiring to see more and more businesses looking for green solutions. Now, capping off the roof of the garden home is a steel roof, or actually one made from a special blend of metals or an alloy. In this case, it's a combination of zinc and tin, hence the name ZT alloy. The color I chose is a classic red, but it can be ordered from a list of 20 other colors that are applied during the manufacturing process. Because of the paint and the alloy, this roof is very corrosion resistant. In fact, this is a time-honored roofing system that can protect buildings for well over 100 years. So there'll be no need to replace this long-lasting and important component to the house, thus making it a very green element indeed. I have to say, one of the most exciting aspects of the garden home retreat are the porches, both on the front and the back. Here we are on the front porch, and I just want to point out some of the details that are going on with the window. The windows were manufactured with, well, this historic model in mind. Remember, the house is built around the Greek Revival style, about 1830. And so what they did is they oversized the panes and put in this 5/8 inch muntin. This very narrow muntin is a period detail, as well as this thickened sill you can see here. Now around it we have this brick mold, which was taken from the Hunt Felon house in Memphis. You see, I drew details from various structures in this region to pull together this whole idea of a new old house that fits this region. You see, the Greek Revival style was modified depending on whatever region it was being built in. Other houses from this area include the Absalom Fowler house from the 1830s, as well as our old State House. Now, if you look at the window sills here that are in stone, these came from a local quarry, not only the window sills, but also the lintels above. Now, the brick, which I'm very proud of, is laid in a Flemish bond. So what you get is you get the stretcher and you get the header, one repeated right after the other with each course of the brick. Brick, of course, is an ancient material which is very long lasting, so it fits into our green theme quite beautifully. Brian White, an expert in masonry, visited here a few weeks ago, and he tells us more about this ancient building material.
Old bricklayers, and I guess most homeowners would think, that a single width of brick would keep all the weather away from the house.
Yeah.
If it's laid well, the mortar's batched well, a good weather day, if everything goes together perfectly, that this is a weather-proof barrier, and that's not really the case.
These brick are porous.
They are a bit. You can't force water right through the body of this brick unless it rained for 40 days and 40 nights like it did in Noah's day, nor through the joint. But at the interface, as the mortar dries, it shrinks just a bit. And sometimes hairline cracks form that you can't even see with your naked eye, and a wind-driven rain can blow a little water through there. But see, behind this, Alan, there has to be some type of house wrap and I know you did that.
Yeah.
Prior to the brick being laid, 15-pound felt. Black tar paper would do the same job. Just anything in case some water got through, then it would hit that paper and run down and exit at the weep holes just above the flashing that you installed. Also very important, right behind this brick there's about a 1-inch airspace. And so any water that makes it through can't jump across that airspace. It just runs down the back of the wall and exits. So what the homeowner should think, or a designer, is this. If you get a house, or any building for that matter, ready for masonry, and you call the bricklayer and say, okay, the doors are set, the windows are set, I'm ready for the brick to be laid. If that mason can come up and take a hose and get water in the house before he starts, guess what's going to happen after he lays the brick?
I see.
So the water barrier is behind the brick. The entire system has to work together as a unit in order to keep moisture out of the house.
Wow, Charlie, that is looking awesome. It just looks great. Well, I know everyone thinks I'm crazy. What's going on here is I'm actually applying a lime wash to the brick of the house. The brick is beautiful, but this is a very traditional way of painting a house. And it's the same process that we carried through at the entry gates. We took the stone and covered the stone with this same sort of buttery yellow lime wash. Now you see, this is a very old, time-honored method of applying a color to masonry. What you want to do is you want to start with a clean surface. It needs to be fairly dry, and when you apply it, you want to apply it with big, broad strokes. You can see Charlie's using a roller here. Now, what you do is you apply one coat and then come back after the first coat is completely dried and then apply the next. Now come over here, I want to show you what one coat of this lime wash looks like. You can see it here. This has really been a process where we've had to apply it, take a look at it, decide how many more coats we need to lay on to the house. So here's one, and then you look over here, Charlie's already added 2 more. So here's 1 and here's 3. All right, we've seen a lot of what's going on with the house. Let's step out into the garden. When I walk through this garden today, it's really hard for me to imagine the way it looked the first time I saw it. You know, the major landscape feature that attracted me to this place, besides the river beyond, was that giant oak tree up in the front. Everything is sort of lined up on the center of that tree. The garden running east and west is symmetrical. Now, the first thing we did when we started creating this garden was to level off the various terraces. Once the terraces were established, the stone walls went in to serve as retainage. Now, what I mean by retainage is that the soil from one terrace or level to the next had to be retained or held back. So by using native stone, we were able to achieve that. That gave me an upper level terrace, a middle terrace, and then below we have the orchard. So once that was put in place, we could establish the pathway down the center, and then came the raised beds. After the raised beds, we started putting in the structural plants like the holly hedges, the vitex trees, as well as all of the boxwoods, and the espaliered fruit trees, both the gala apples and the kefir pears. Now, obviously, we can't forget about the soil. It has played a very important role in how bountiful this garden has been for this past year. You see, it's all organic, so we introduced lots of humus into the soil. The vegetables have been so abundant, and of course the annuals and perennials, they've grown beyond my expectations. Now obviously this is organic gardening on a large scale, so how about looking at organic solutions for those who garden in containers? Planting all of the containers in my garden is always a priority each spring. You see, these serve as important focal points or points of interest throughout my entire garden. I can't imagine it without them. I grow vegetables, herbs, and of course flowers in a wide range of containers. The only downside to gardening in containers that I've discovered is the fact that you have to water them so frequently. And because of this, the nutrient can leach from the soil. Every good gardener knows that success starts with the soil and how you care for it. And that's why I've taken a more organic approach to gardening in containers. You see, organic fertilizers actually stay in the soil longer. They don't leach out as fast as synthetic ones. To amend basic potting soil, I use cottonseed meal as a source of nitrogen. For phosphorus, I use bone meal. And for potassium, I use green sand. Another advantage to using these organic amendments is that you get the benefit of the trace elements that you can't get in synthetic fertilizers. You see, the soil is a living organism, and keeping it healthy will pay big dividends with your plants. Getting the soil right is just the first step of this process. The second part is to continue fertilizing the plants throughout the growing season with a liquid organic fertilizer. Hi, welcome to the studio. This is where I take photographs you send in. We take a look at them and I make some suggestions on ways you might improve the landscape. Let's take a look at Stephanie's house in Pennsylvania. What she has here is a traditional red brick house with a red roof. I really like the red roof. A couple of things before we get to plantings that I'd like to suggest, and they really relate to color. Stephanie, when you get ready to repaint the house, the window trim, you might think of using a sort of dull, taupey dove gray. I think it could be really great around the window trim and the trim of the house all the way down, as well as the gutters. The door itself, I would think about taking some shade of this red. A barn red on the door would be great looking. Okay, now with that said, let's jump into some planting. The house is really tall down here on this end. I can see a couple of garage doors where obviously a driveway sweeps around. I think out here somewhere I would plant a really large shade tree. Maybe a sugar maple, a scarlet oak. I could even see a red maple there. It would be gorgeous in the fall with all of those autumnal colors. This walkway coming up, you have a beautiful planting of flowers here, but I wonder about starting at this point here with a hedge that might run all the way up about 4 feet out from the walkway like this. Just a low hedge. It could be boxwood, it could be yew, anything that could be clipped that would just hide the walk, but you could do a flower bed on the inside that you would see through the windows of the house. And then down here I would notch it out and then come back over to this side, leaving a space here, and then in this area I would plant either a weeping cherry or a flowering dogwood. Wouldn't that be beautiful? All right, let's come back down to this end of the house. I see you have a trellis here, and I'm thinking you're probably going to want to grow a rose. So again, think about the color. If you change the color from white to this gray I'm mentioning, you might mount a trellis right here painted on the wall and then grow a rose up on it. And given the color of your brick, I would go with something that's sort of a peachy apricot. One of my favorites is a rose called Colette. Or you can do the old standby New Dawn, which is really fail-safe. Well, Stephanie, I hope these ideas are helpful to you. Good luck with your project. Well, that's all the time we have for today's show. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. You've had a chance to see some of the green innovations that we're applying here to the house, and I couldn't be prouder of all the hard work the guys are putting into the Garden Home Retreat. We're really making some progress. The other thing I'm proud of is the fact that the house sits comfortably in the landscape. We were able to preserve this great old tree. Under it, we've planted beautiful spring flowering daffodils, and even in the fall, we have autumn blooming crocus. You know, each day we all make choices about the products we buy and the way we use the planet's resources. I hope that you'll think green and look for ways that you can have less of an impact on the environment. Until next time, from the Garden Home, I'm Alan Smith. More information about today's topic and other topics covered in this series can be found at pallansmith.com.
On an upcoming episode of P. Allen Smith's Garden Home.
Okay, you've seen the dogs, the sheep, the horses, but wait, there is more, much more. In this show, we're exploring the wildlife at the Garden Home Retreat with a look at some of my newest additions. Plus, we'll talk to an expert about ways to keep unwanted critters out of your garden. And with all of these crazy critters in the garden, well, some of this advice is sure to come in handy.